compared to anybody else. It's a really interesting part of philosophy called epistemology. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't recommend it. It's really annoying. It's essentially the study of knowledge, the philosophy of knowledge. Is anything that I know real? Can I know anything for real? And the example, I still remember my first lesson in this, the example that was given was, for instance, if I take this glass and hold this glass here, right? Everybody's looking at the exact same glass, but based on where you're sitting, you'll see something slightly different. You guys will see a distortion of what's behind the glass there. You guys might see a distortion of my hand here. Somebody might see the light reflecting from one side, see the light reflecting from another side. But we're all looking at the same thing. We're all looking at the exact same thing, but we're seeing different things as a result of where you're sat, or the strength of your eyes, or how you perceive different things. Now, when it comes to knowing ourselves, it's just as hard. We don't know what other people think of us. We don't know how other people see us. That's one level. We don't know who we are ourselves. We can't recognize what's within us ourselves. For instance, if I were to wake up tomorrow morning with a stomachache, I don't know if it's because the night before I ate too much, or if it's because I didn't eat enough. I don't know if it's because I ate something dodgy. I don't know what it is. It's my body. It's my body talking to me. That's what a stomachache or any kind of ache or pain is. It's your body talking to you. And I still don't know exactly what it is that it's telling me. All I know is it hurts. I can't tell you what it is that's making it hurt. I can't tell you why it is. Not until I've done further, well, I say research, but you don't really research into why you have a stomachache. But not until I've looked into it a bit more, thought about it, tried to figure it out a bit more, do I realize what it is that's making my stomach hurt. See, we really don't recognize ourselves. And a very, very beautiful dua is the dua for Isha namaz. The dua that we recite after Isha is beautiful because it highlights this so well, that we don't know ourselves. We don't know what's around us. We don't know what we should know. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma innahu laysa li ilmun bimawdi'i rizqi. Oh Allah, I don't know where I get my sustenance from. I don't know where I get my rizq from. The thing that I need to keep me alive, I don't know where I get that from. And it goes on. And so I keep looking around for it off my own ideas. I keep trying to come up with ideas as to where I get this rizq from, where I get this sustenance from. And we go on, فَعَجُولُ فِي طَلَبِهِ الْبُلْدَانِ, and I'm stumbling and stammering from place to place, trying to find this sustenance, whether that's food or money or whatever it is, that thing that gives you life. I'm stammering around from place to place, trying to find it. La adriya, I don't know. لا أدري في سحل وأم في جبل أم في سماء أم في أرض أم في بحر. I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's in the skies. I don't know if it's on earth. I don't know if it's in the mountains. I don't know if it's in the valleys, in the oceans, or on land. I couldn't tell you, Ya Allah, but Allah, you know where it is. I want to reflect on myself. The first reflection I have to recognize and realize is Allah knows more about me than I could ever know. Allah knows more about me than I could ever understand. And in truth, often we're not the ones who know the most about ourselves. As a child growing up, who knows what's best for you? You or your parents? Your parents know best. In your teenage years, oftentimes, and there's certain examples that I wish I could use, but I can't because we've got a very vast audience. But there'll be times where everyone around you can see that what you're doing isn't good for you. Everyone around you can see that what you're doing is bad for you. The people that you're hanging out with, they're not good people to be hanging out with. Everyone can see it except for who? You. Everyone can see what's good for you. You can't see it. Everyone can see what's bad for you. You can't see it. You can't tell what your own body is telling you. You can't understand it. You don't know where you get life from. You don't know where you get death from. You don't understand any aspect of this world yet. That's the first recognition when you reflect and look back at your own life. That's the first thing you have to realize. The answers are out there, but I don't have them yet. I have to find them. Recognizing who I am, the first step is recognizing there's so much that I don't know. There's so much that I still need to learn. In fact, if you go to the Hawza, if you go to study Islam, you'll be taught many, many different things. But the one constant throughout your time there, the one constant that you'll be taught the whole time is you know nothing yet. You don't know anything yet. Constantly, and it doesn't matter what level you get to, you're consistently told you don't know anything yet. There's so much more to learn. That's the first step. The second step now is recognizing what makes me me. And this is a very difficult question to answer. It's a very tough question to dive into. And I've only got about 10 minutes left before I have to start the Masa'ib. It's a very difficult question to answer, what makes me me, but it's an important question. It's a very important question to recognize the answer to find out the answer to. See, if you ask me what makes me me, ask me who I am. To me, I'm Pakistani, I'm London born, I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm a Shia Muslim, I'm from South London. That's me in a nutshell, right? That is what I consider the different parts of me to be. When you recognize those parts, you realize what your identity is. Who are you? Where are you from? What is it that makes you the person you are? And the reason that I chose those things is because those are the things that define my actions, or at least one of the things. One of the biggest influences on how you behave is your identity. That can be cultural, that can be religious, that can be kind of location and locality, where you're from, that can be anything. It decides how you act. Certain elements of respect, the way I respect my elders, I get that from my culture. I get that because I grew up in a Pakistani household and I was taught that this is the way you treat other people and this is the respect that you get. A lot of the way I act is because of my religion. Islam tells me to act a certain way, so I act in that manner. The way I speak, often the way I walk and talk, is from where I grew up. It's from where I was born and brought up. See, these are the things that influence your action in part, at least one of the things that influence your action. One of the bigger ones. What you have to recognize is, what are those parts of my identity and which one of those do I represent the most? Because if they're all influencing my actions, if the fact that I'm Pakistani influences my actions, the fact that I'm from London influences my actions, the fact that I'm a Shia Muslim influences my actions, when you look at me, which one of those do you see first? When you talk to me, which one of those do you realize first? When you interact with me, which one of those is most obvious? Is it that I am Pakistani? Is it that I am from London? Is it that I'm a Shia Muslim? Is it that I'm an Arsenal fan? Is it that I'm 25? Is it that I'm, I don't know, whatever else there could be, right? Is it that my friends are of this nature? Is it that my family's of this nature? What do you realize first when you meet me and speak to me and interact with me? Because that is the part of your identity that's leading all the rest. Now, we all know what the answer should be. We all know the answer should be the fact that I am a Shia Muslim mu'min is what leads above all the rest. When you first speak to me, when you first meet me, when you first interact with me, you should be able to tell straight away this person is a mu'min. If you have the recognition of a mu'min in your heart, you should be able to see it within me. That's what should be the case. But when we look at our actions, when we look at our behavior, when we look at our mannerisms, is that really what shines through, or is there something else? This is one of the major influences on our actions. One of the things that massively influences how we behave, how we act, how we come across to people is your identity. And you have to figure out what that identity is. Which part of your identity is the strongest? What are the other parts? Are they good parts? Are they bad parts? Are they parts of your identity you want to keep? Are they parts of your identity that you want to shed? You have to recognize that. The second thing is this kind of fire, this war that's constantly going on inside each and every one of us. This is the second thing that influences our actions, that decides how we behave. This little war that's going on inside us between a few different parties. One is anger. We all have this anger and this rage inside us that's constantly fighting to be heard. Second is desire. We all have desires that we chase after, that we tend to in order to keep ourselves going. The third is waswasa, shaitan's influence on us. Shaitan is constantly whispering in our ear, trying to get us to go in one direction or another. That's also trying to pull you. And the fourth is your intellect, your aql. These four things are constantly fighting each other for one of them to reign supreme over you, so that that one can control your actions, that one in truth can control you. See, your anger, that's pushing you towards rage, that's pushing you towards emotion, do things emotionally. Your desire, that's pushing you towards lust and greed, that's pushing you towards gluttony, that's pushing you towards all of those things. You have shaitan, that's pushing you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, driving you as much as he can away from your Lord, away from your fitrah. Oftentimes when we look at something that is haram, the reason it's haram is because it takes us away from what we call our fitrah. Our fitrah is that thing which innately is built within us when we're born. The way you are when you're born, perfectly pure, is what you call your fitrah. And the things that pull you away from that, those are the things that have been made haram for us because they're detrimental. I'll give you an example, right? Music. When you're born, you don't need to listen to music. You don't need to be listening to it, but the more you listen to music, it becomes more and more addictive. Now, all of a sudden, I can't work without listening to music. I can't eat without listening to something. I can't walk somewhere without listening to something. I have to have my headphones in constantly and consistently. When I'm driving somewhere, I need to be listening to something. When I'm going somewhere, I need to be listening to something. Whatever I'm doing, I need to have my headphones in, listening to something. You're not meant to be like that. That's not how you were built. You're not meant to need to be listening to something constantly. In fact, silence, once you get used to it, is one of the most beautiful things. It's why Fajr Salah is meant to be the most beautiful Salah. Because when the whole world is asleep and it's just silent and it's you and your Lord, that's when you really tune into yourself. Silence has such great value, but we trained ourselves to constantly need to be listening to something. Constantly need to have my headphones in. See, it's pulling you away from your fitrah, pulling you away from the way you're meant to be. And that's what makes things haram. We have to try and retain that fitrah. See, Shaitan is trying to pull you away from your fitrah. And the fourth of all of those things, which is trying to fight for superiority, was what? Our intellect, our aql. And we mentioned the same verse yesterday. I'll mention it again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says what? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Can somebody who is intelligent be the same as somebody who's not intelligent? No. Somebody who is intelligent will always be raised higher. In fact, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu wa salam, when he lists to his son Imam Muhammad Baqir the type of friends that you should keep, or the type of friends that you should stay away from rather, he lists the one who's unintelligent, stay away from him. Why? Because even though he'll try and help you, and even though he wants to do good for you, out of his unintelligence, out of his foolishness, he'll be more damaging to you. He'll cause you more problems than had you not had him as a friend. Islam values intelligence very much, to the point where a man once comes to the Imam and he asks him, Ya Imam, if I have 24 hours left to live, what should I do with that time? 24 hours left to live, what should I do? Now we could say anything. Go read Quran, go read namaz, go spend time with your family, go give sadaqah, go do du'as, whatever it is. What does the Imam say? The Imam says, go learn something new. Ya Imam, I've got 24 hours left to live. What am I going to do by going and learning something? What am I going to do with that knowledge? See, intellect is the thing that takes you back towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Intellect, when it's used in its full capacity, when it's used with an open heart and an open mind, it leads you back to Tawheed and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at every turn and at every opportunity. Because this curiosity that's built within us, this curiosity that's built inside us, it needs answers. And those answers come and come and come, and every answer comes with another question. It's like a chain, but that chain leads you all the way back to the final answer. The final point after which there are no questions, and that point is the point of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That point is the point of our creator, our designer, our master, our maker. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the final point of intelligence that we're looking to reach. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that final point, and what does it start with? Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbuh. You want to get to that final point of intelligence of your Lord? We go back to where we started from. The one who recognizes himself recognizes his Lord. See, we have to, if we want to try and reform ourselves like we're trying to do in these majalis, we have to follow a certain pathway. I'll lay out that pathway once again for you. First, we have to reform ourselves. To reform ourselves, we have to reflect on ourselves. To reflect on ourselves, we will come across many questions. And if we want to get the answers to those questions, the best place to turn is the one who has all those answers. The best place to turn is the one who wrote all those answers, wrote them down in what we know as Kitab, wrote them down in the Holy Quran, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to be able to reform society, go ask questions of the one who created society itself, who designed and made this world in the way that it was meant to be. Then you'll see how you can take this society from where it is today, from where you want it to get to. It's very important. We start off with ourselves. recognizing ourselves, the things that drive us, the things that drive our action, the things that make me behave in the way that I behave. Why am I the way that I am? We have to recognize that. We have to figure that out. When you figure that out, A, you gain a greater understanding, or you gain yourself a step closer to that link of questions that leads you back to Tawheed and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But B, those four things that we said are constantly trying to take over you. Your anger, your desires, Shaitan's waswasa, his whispers, and your intellect, you give intellect the upper hand. And when your intellect is in charge, every decision you make is a decision which is smart and in your best interests. Every decision you make is a decision which leads you to a better life, not only in the next life, but this one too, because that's what we're all looking for. We're all looking for peace and comfort. We're all looking for a good life in this life and the next one. We can't forget this life. It's just as important. It matters just as much, because you can't leave behind this life for the next life, just as much as you can't leave behind the next life for this life. The two go hand in hand. And they come hand in hand when you start thinking intellectually. When your intellect takes over. And honestly, and I say this from experience, I can't explain to you what that feeling is like when you look at your life and you know you have a reason for all of your decisions. When you look at your life and you see it getting better, because everything you do knowing it is best for you. Everything you do, you know you're taking a step in the right direction. All of a sudden now, it's not my anger that's pulling me in one direction. It's not my desires that's pulling me in one direction, because I can't tell you why I did what I did if that's what's putting me in that direction. There's no reasoning behind anger. There's no reasoning behind desire. It's base animalistic instinct. But we're separated from those animals. We're separated from the other creatures that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. How? In that we have aql. We have intellect. We are able to make those decisions and those choices. And so, when it comes to reflection, when it comes to reforming society, it starts with recognizing yourself. It starts with knowing who you are, why you are the way you are. And when you do have that reflection, when you do have that intellect at the forefront of everything you do, then you get to a point, which is the point we see in Karbala again and again, where Imam Hussein alayhi salam asks his companions over and over in various different ways, are you ready to face death? And each of them, they say yes. But in almost every instance, before they say yes, they ask a question of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. They ask him, Ya Imam, or they ask him, oh my father, oh my brother, oh my cousin, whoever he's speaking to at the time. And you see it again and again in the history of Karbala. Imam Hussein, he asks, are you ready for what is to come? And they say to him, Ya Imam, are we on the right path? Are we on the path of haqq? Imam Hussein says, yes, of course. And in every instance, they then reply saying, yes, then we're ready. Then let death come to us, or us go to death, it doesn't make a difference. Or they'll reply in the famous words of Hazrat Qasim, death to me is sweeter than honey. Because when you have that intellect and you have that recognition, you see what haqq and truth is, then you recognize this world for what it is as well. This world isn't meant to be a great place for you, no. The next world is incredible. The next world has the secrets that we could not even imagine in this world. And the only way to explain what the next world will look like and what you can achieve is by saying, when you were in the womb of your mother, it was total darkness, but you were comfortable. You were nourished, you were taken care of, you were at peace in the womb of your mother. At that point, you had no idea what this world looks like. In that moment, when you're in your mother's womb, when you're in your mother's stomach, there is no way, no chance you had a clue what this world would be like. That you could imagine planes and cars and oceans and valleys and mountains and skies and heavens, the stars and the planets. You could never have imagined all of that. All you knew was the darkness of your mother's womb. That you left that world and this world existed, and it dazzled you beyond anything you could have imagined. But it also tested you. It also trialed you more than you could have ever imagined. The same way you go from that world to this world, and there's a whole new world that you could never imagine, you can't even begin to imagine what the next world has in store for you. When you leave this world and go into the next, you can't even begin to imagine. But see, death, although we should welcome it with open arms, there's times where death, it can become quite scary for us. For the Imams, it wasn't scary, but the pain that came with death, they were very aware of it. The pain that was to befall Abu Abdullah, he was very aware of it. There's a point where Abu Abdullah, shortly before he reaches Karbala, he takes a while to rest. As he rests, he sleeps. When he wakes up from his sleep, he's seen crying. He keeps whispering the same thing over and over again. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Somebody comes up to the Imam, they ask him, Ya Imam, why do you keep whispering this? The Imam says, I saw in my dream a mounted knight, he approached me. He was on a horse. He comes walking towards me. As he comes walking towards me, he said just one thing and then he left. The man asked, Ya Imam, what did he say? The Imam says, that night he looked at me and he said, the people travel along their way and behind them they are being stalked by death. See, throughout this journey through the deserts until my Mawla reaches Karbala, and from onwards there, death itself was stalking Abu Abdullah. Here Abu Abdullah travels with the women and the children, the men of his family, but a short distance behind him, the angel of death, Malakul Maut, is traveling with him. His eyes set on Hussein, his eyes looking towards Abu al-Fadl Abbas and Qasim and Akbar. The angel of death never left Abu Abdullah. He stalked him like a predator stalks its prey, waiting and ready for the moment where he would take the soul of Abu Abdullah. The time comes where, as they travel through the desert, the Zuljanah of my Mawla Hussein, it refuses to move any further forward. This is Zuljanah. This is very out of character for the horse of Imam Hussein. Why? Imam Hussein, at one point where he's talking about Zuljanah, he describes the way Zuljanah is in tune with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So much so that if they were ever traveling or in war, Imam Hussein would not have to pull the reins of his horse. Zuljanah would know which direction his master wants him to go in. Whatever Imam Hussein tells Zuljanah to do, Zuljanah does. But in this moment, Zuljanah refuses to move any further forward. Zuljanah will not take one step forward. There are only two times in history we see where Zuljanah refuses to move. One is here on the 2nd of Muharram. The second time it happens was on Ashura, where Zuljanah is being ushered forward by Hussein, but Zuljanah will not move. Instead, he looks down to his feet, and what does Hussein see? He sees Sakina holding on to Zuljanah's legs, as if to say, Zuljanah, don't make Sakina an orphan. Here, Zuljanah will not move. Abu al-Fadl Abbas comes to Mawla Hussein. He asks him, my master, what is the issue? Why have you stopped? Hussein says, Abbas, I have not stopped, my horse has. Zuljanah will not move forward. The strength of Abbas tries to pull Zuljanah, but Zuljanah will not move. Abu al-Fadl Abbas, he turns to his master, he says, here, ride my horse instead. We will bring Zuljanah along. Imam Hussein mounts the horse of Abu al-Fadl Abbas. Abbas's horse will not move. They bring the horse of Akbar. Akbar's horse will not move. 7 times my Mawla tried different horses. None of them would move. At this point, Abu Abdullah, he turned to Hazrat Abbas. He says, Abbas, go and look around. See if there are any people in this area, any people who live around here. Hazrat Abbas, he goes around and he finds the tribe of Banu Asad. They are called forward to meet Mawla Hussein. As they come forward, my Mawla asks them, tell me, what is the name of this land? One of them says to him, the name is Nainava. He says, no, there must be another name. Somebody says, this is called Maria. He says, tell me, is there another name? Somebody says, Ghazariya. They say, no, another name. Shaqqul Furat, another name. Again and again they tell him names. Mawla Hussein keeps asking, is there another name? Another name, to the point where there are no names left to say. There is nothing else that people call this land. Imam Hussein says to the people, look, is there anybody in your village who has been here since the time of the elders? Anybody who is quite aged and elderly? Maybe they know of any other names. The people go. They bring an old man there, a very old man, so much so that he couldn't walk himself. He had to be carried. They bring him in front of Mawla Hussein. Abu Abdullah, he says to him, I've heard all these names, but are there any other names that this land is known by? The man stops, he thinks for a moment, then he looks up at Mawla Hussein and he says, yes, I've heard some of my elders call this place Karbala. This land has been known to be called Karbala. In this moment, my Mawla Hussein, he says, yes, this is the name I was looking for. Indeed, this is the land of sorrow and trials. Abu Abdullah, he then says to the people, look, I wish to take this land from you. I wish to buy it from you. As Imam Hussein says this, that old man, he calls out, oh ya ibn Rasulullah, O son of the Holy Prophet of Allah, I am your believer, I am your lover, I love and respect you, but I must ask one thing of you, Abu Abdullah, so tell me, what is it? The man says, forgive me, but do not stay in this land, do not take this land. Abu Abdullah tells him, say why? Why do you not wish for me to stay here? The man says, I have heard from my elders that no prophet nor wali has ever come to this land except that droplets of their blood would fall from their body. My heart goes out to Hussein, who looks at that man in that moment. It was not droplets of blood from the body of Hussein, it was 72 cuts and wounds in his body. Now Hussein, he looks at the man, he says, no, I wish to buy this land from you. The people say, Yabna Rasulullah, there is no need to buy the land. Stay here for as long as you wish. Stay here for as long as you want. When you wish to travel, you may travel again. But Yabna Rasulullah, we don't wish to take any money from you. Hussein looks at them and he says, you tell me that I can travel on whenever I wish, but you should know this much, I am not here except to stay in this land for eternity. I do not plan on leaving this land now that I have come here. Abu Abdullah gives them money for the land. He then turns to them and says, now I have given you the money for the land. I wish to gift the land back to you as well. This land will remain yours, but I have some things I have to ask of you. Abu Abdullah, he lays out for the people the request that he has. He tells them, here is where they will kill our men. He tells them, here is where they will capture our women. But when they kill us, when they attack us, when they leave us lying here, will you come and bury our bodies? The men of Banu Asad, they agree. They tell our Mawla, yes, of course, we will bury your body. Abu Abdullah then turns to them and says to them, if you will you call the women from your camps? If you will you call the women of your tribe forward? I wish to speak to them. Mawla Hussein, he addresses the women once they come. He says, if your men are too scared, if they are afraid of the armies of Yazid, then pretend you are going to get water and throw dirt over our bodies. The women, they say to Abu Abdullah, of course we will. He then says, bring your children to me. The children come forward. Hussein says to them, if your parents are too afraid, then pretend you are playing, and in your games throw dirt over our bodies so that we can be buried. Allahu Akbar. Abu Abdullah, he had such a requirement, such a desire to be buried in Karbala, buried with dignity. But what happened on the 10th of Muharram, after they attack my Mawla? Night falls, the women are attacked, 11th of Muharram arrives. The same Hussein who said 3 times, will you bury our bodies? First to the men, then to the women, third to the children. Now what happens? Hussein had brought Akbar's body back to the tent, Qasim's pieces back to the tent, Asghar buried behind the tent, Abbas was at the Furat. If you look at the plains of Karbala in this moment, the armies of Yazid have taken their men away. They have taken their bodies away. Now, the plains of Karbala, the battlefield is empty, except for one body lying in the middle. Abu Abdullah, lying on the plains of Karbala, completely alone. But nobody came to bury him. Instead, what happens? Umar, Sa'ad and Shimar, They call out, we need 10 horsemen. The horsemen gather. They run across Abu Abdullah's body on their horses until the back of Abu Abdullah breaks through his chest, until every rib is shattered. The last line of Masa'ib. Abu Abdullah, he tells Abu Abbas, Abbas, set the tents here. Zainab, she calls her brother to her tent. She says to him, there is something about this place that is giving me discomfort. Hussein says, tell me what. First, she says, from this land, I can smell your blood. It smells as though your blood is in this land. Hussein says, Zainab, give it some days. You will see my blood spilled on this land. Then my Mola, he says, Zainab, what else causes you discomfort here? Zainab says, ever since we arrived in this place, I can constantly hear the sound of a woman crying. I don't know what it is, but it is making my heart tremble. Hussein says, Zainab, you were only 5 years old when she left us, so you don't remember the sound of the tears of Zahra, who has come to Karbala with Allah la'natullahi ala qawmi zalimeen. سَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. We raise our hands in dua and we pray to Allah Azza wa Jal, oh Allah, accept all our ibadat in this holy month of Muharram. Oh Allah, for all those suffering from ill health, grant them complete shafa. Oh Allah, in particular, our brother Abdullah Abbas needs our du'as and he needs your shafa. Grant him a complete and full recovery. Oh Allah, for all those of our loved ones and all those mu'mineen who were with us last Muharram and are no longer with us this Muharram, raise their ranks in Jannah. Oh Allah, hasten the reappearance of our Imam. Oh Allah, allow us to stand alongside him and enter Jannah under his banner. You are requested to recite Al-Fatiha and 3 times Surah Ikhlas for Masood Bukhari. Al-Fatiha.